Hello, everyone, and welcome back. And if you're new here, I'm glad you're here. As you've probably figured out from the title and opening photo, I made a Jedi Temple diorama that doubles as a lightsaber hilt display stand. To start things off, I had some pieces of plywood that I just screwed together to make a base, and then I cut some XPS foam and had some off-cut pieces also that I just put together and cut into different shapes to try and make it look like mountainous type terrain. And once I got all of the pieces glued together and put some weights on it until the glue set, and then everything was ready to go, and I used a crafting knife to start carving and shaping the hills and the mountains a little bit better. Once I had most of the edges cut down and some shape to the different layers, then I rolled some aluminum foil to give those cut areas some texture and a little bit of texture to the flat areas also. After I was done with the texture, I decided to use my tweezers, and I was scraping and plucking out pieces into the edges just to give some more depth and definition to the stone. And once that was done, then it was time to give it all a Mod Podge and paint primer coat to help seal everything. But as I was going, I decided that it wasn't enough. There needed to be more detail. So I cut in little ridges, I added a few pieces, and I cut off some pointier, sharper edges or corners and rounded everything off to give it a more eroded and older look. And I think it came out great. And with the sealing and priming layer of paint and Mod Podge done, then it was time to start putting in some base colors. I started out with like a deep barn red and just started splotching it on here and there. And I started mixing in yellow in other spots and just started blending it as I felt like it was looking good. Now this little cave looking spot here is where I decided I was putting the Jedi Temple entrance, and I used a corner piece from some packing to, those protection corners that are like a really hard cardboard in your packaging. Piece of that worked out great for a little roof. Instead of just attaching it to the outside, I decided to carve out a little bit of a outline of it into the stone so I could put it back into the stone, and I think that worked out really well. I had glued in a piece of foam board into the peak of the roof part there. And then I found some little tiny wooden spools that fit perfect over a bamboo skewer to make a couple of pillars to hold the roof up. Once the roof and pillars were primed, I decided that front area just was too flat and plain. So I cut out some chunks and just made some spots to make it look more interesting and less plain. I also had carved out a little set of stairs, and so I mixed up some grout that I have, pretty thick, and was using a broken palette knife to smear it in and push it into and just add some more texture and more character to the build. Once the grout was dry, then I went through and I did the Mod Podge and paint over that area and that whole front part again, just to seal everything up. Next, I came in with a raw sienna color, and I covered the roof, and I just started applying it to most areas of the stone and the rock. And then the next step was coming in with a light tan and dry brushing everything. And if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, then you know that I love to do dry brushing. Once I was done with all of the dry brushing work, then I came in with some sand and I spread that around to give it some nice texture and to give it more of a desert feel. And I didn't like the grain size of the sand. It just was too big to me at this scale. So I had some extremely fine sand or dirt that I had sifted out, and I spread that around, and I like the look of that much better. At this scale, it looked much better. It was at this point that with experimenting with this new fine dirt or sand that I was using, really started to get to be not working so well. I tried doing a little dam of glue and putting the sand on it, and then I tried doing some watered down glue, sprayed it down with some isopropyl alcohol to help break the surface tension of the glue so it would seep in. And I don't know if it's because this sand is so fine that there's not a lot of like space between the individual pieces for the glue to seep in, but I stopped filming because it was a disaster and you didn't need to see me struggle. Once I did get that bottom part finally all glued down and drying, I decided to put some sandy spots up on the mountains, on the hills, or the stone. So I put some of my Mod Podge primer paint mix, and then I sprinkled sand, the larger granule sand, over top of that, and then I put in some watered down Mod Podge to glue that all into place. So it was at this point that everything was dry and I was going to glue the finer sand to the coarser sand up on the rocks. And I didn't like these cracks down at the bottom. I didn't expect that to happen, and I didn't like that look. So I went over it yet again with more Mod Podge and sprinkled on the fine sand to get back to that really nice sandy look. Once I got the bottom to the bottom part to how I wanted it and how I thought it looked good, then I went back to those top parts on the stone where I had the coarse sand and redid those with the finer sand just because it looked so much better than that coarse sand. And once I did this part of the sand, the project was done. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Enjoy the after photos of some, including with my lightsaber hilt, showing it as a stand also.